Welcome viewers to this new episode of the DENSO Tech Academy video tutorial series. In this part, which is the last part of the DMS tutorials, I would like to show you how to use the BHD remote function with DMS and the Android devices. And I would like to show you how to distribute software packages, OS images, settings, and so on using the DMS system to the devices. Good, so let's start with distribution of the software packages. I have my DMS system up and running and have the device connected to the system. And now we would like to show you how to distribute software package to the device. This can be done in the DMS system using the tasks. And we see here there are different tasks in the system which we can create. There is one task for an OS update. There is one task for an application update. There is one task for sending a folder, so sending files, CSV files, or whatsoever files to the device. And of course, there is one task to receive files from the device. And finally, there is one task for updating settings on the device. I've already said that we can create settings on the device, we can configure a device, and then we can retrieve the settings from each device. And we can use this setting from which we retrieved from one master device and distribute those with this task to the other devices in the group or in the system or wherever. In general, all these tasks are pretty much working the same way. In this tutorial, I would like to use an application update task to show you how this update is working, how we can send an application file to the device and install the application file on the device. Good. Then let's start. We can create an update application task here. And the first thing we have to do is we have to give the task a name. I name it demo application because I would like to distribute now the BHD demo application to the device. Next step, I need to select the file which I would like to send to the devices. Of course, I have downloaded the demo application here. This is the APK file of the application which I would like to download to the devices in my system and install the application on the device in the system. Good, I pick the file and select open. Now the file is here. Of course, the next thing I need to do is I need to select the devices in my system. So I can select whole groups or just single devices. In this case, I have only one device in my group. So when I pick the device, I automatically pick the whole group in this case. Good. That's done. We created this so far. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to create a schedule. The schedule is used for controlling how to send the file to the device and when to send the file to the device. We have two options here. One is we can create an immediately schedule. With this schedule, we send the files immediately and we're starting the update process immediately. In this case, I only have to pick two things in the schedule. But of course, I can pick scheduled and then I can select the sending time and the sending period from in which date period the application should be sent to the devices, which time frame they should be sent to the devices. And I can create the same for the update time. Using these two settings, I have the possibility to control the network workload, for instance. If we're distributing OS images, they're quite large. And So with these settings, we can control that the OS images are sent in a certain time period. So we will like to put it, for instance, out of the operating hours, the normal operating hours, and then make sure that the sending of the OS images is done, let's say, on one day after the normal operating hours, and the update should then be done on the next day, let's say before the operating hours, so that we can make sure that the OS update is applied to the devices without interfering with our normal operating process. So for this demo, I picked the immediate option, and the only thing I need to do here now is I need to select a time until when this task should be finished. So we have now 10 minutes to 2. I can pick 2 o'clock because I would like to have this finished until 2 o'clock on all my devices. I have only one device in the system, so that shouldn't be a big problem. And now I have to pick the date, of course, and as the date I pick today. Having done this, everything else is then automatically filled in. I can confirm this with OK. And then I have a few more options which I can pick. I can select if I would like the file to be deleted after the installation process. I can define here if I want to have a silent install on Android devices. I can add a device owner if I would like to on Android devices. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So if I would click OK now here for this task, the task would immediately start. But to show you how this is working, I would like to switch to the device screen. So here we have it. This device I have here is pretty much out of the box. I can show you here the device, the applications installed on the device are pretty much the standard applications which are coming out of the system. Good, now going back to the DMS system, I can now click the OK button, which will make the task appear here and automatically start. If I double click on the task, I get more detailed information. And very important here, the status indicator, which is showing me that now the DMS system is sending the application to the device. And once this sending of the application is completed and the application is downloaded onto the device, the status is switching to updating. Now, the application which we have sent to the device is installed on the device. And if you look at the device screen now, we see that the demo application has appeared on the device. And here in the status view, we see successfully installed. So this is installed on this device. If I would have more than one devices in this group or more than one devices in this task, I would see this status information change for each of the devices. And once the whole task is completed, we see here in the task list that the task color has turned from red to black. So we know this task is completed. And we see here total run for one devices and totally succeeded on one devices. Of course, because we only have one device in the system. That's it for the application distribution. And just to show you, OS distribution is working the same. If I create an OS update task, I have to give them a name, of course, and then instead of picking here an application file, I would pick the OS image, and of course then I have to define as well where to send it to. I have to create the schedule, and here I have the only option to define if I want this deleted after success. So you see, creating these tasks is pretty much the same for each of the different tasks. At the end of the day, the working process behind this is very similar. It's just what we distribute to the devices or what we receive from the devices is just slightly different. That's it for the distribution of applications OS images. Now let's have a look at the configuration and setup for using the Android remote function with the device. We remember we have seen this before. If we right click on the device in the device list, we have here the option to use the Android remote. The Android remote function is quite useful if we have to support our workers and our devices are spread into different locations, and a worker is calling and say, yeah, I'm having here a problem with the application, can you have a look at it? And then without knowing what is going on the device or what the operator is seeing, we can pretty much do nothing on this. So we need a remote access function to see the screen of the device. To get this up and running, first of all, we need to make sure that some of the settings in the device system are correctly. So this is here under settings, Android password. We have two things here. We need to specify the Android remote application. This Android remote application is the server-side part of the application. To have the server side of accessing the device remotely. We have to specify this application here because this is what is set up here is not the Android application, it's something different which is set up here by default. So we have to pick this first. The server-side application of the Android remote is part of each of our OS image and SDK distributions. So I have here the latest OS image and SDK, and if I go in there and I go into tools, I have here the BHT remote. And in the BHT remote, I find this executable. This executable is the one which I have to pick here. Good. Having done this, I need to make sure that I remember this password, because if we go onto the device then later on and configure the client part of the BHT remote, we need to remember this password. So just to make sure that I remember this password now, I pick and set a new password. Let's put it DENSO 2020 exclamation mark. And type it again, DENSO 2020 exclamation mark. I save this. The port I can leave unchanged. This is pretty much the right port by default. And that's it. That's everything I need to be done on the DMS side. Now we have this set up on the DMS side. We have to make sure that the server-side application of the BHT remote is working fine. I have downloaded this from the internet, so I will go up here and into my SDK folder, into my tools folder, and go into BHT remote. This is the executable. So I have downloaded this from the internet. If I just start up this executable, I will get a notification from Windows that this could be a possible risk for my PC. And clicking on more info and then say run anyway, I make sure that the application is starting up the first time. That's pretty much everything I need to do here. If I don't do this, and if I start it the first time from inside the DMS system, I will probably get an error message. So I need to make sure that the BHT remote server-side application is starting up correctly. Having done this, I can simply close it. That's it. Now we're set on the DMS side. And now we have to prepare the BHT on the client side. So I will bring up my device screen again. And now let's have a look at the BHT remote client side. We see here, this is the BHT remote application. So Everything I need to do now is to bring this up. If you bring this up, you will probably see that the device is asking for a license key, because the BHT remote application is not free of charge, so it requires an additional license key to be installed on the device. So when you start it up the first time and you click on it and it's coming up with a license key, then you should get in contact with us so that we can provide you a license key for this. Now, the BHT remote application is now up, and I need to do a few things before we can use it properly. I click on the menu and go to the settings. The first thing I need to do is I need to make sure that I have the same password set here like we put on the DMS system on the server side. So I type in the password here, I confirm the password, and I click on register. And it says successfully changed the password. Good. That's fine for this one. I need to as well make sure I'm using the right keyboard layout. So if I send and type characters from my server-side keyboard, I need to make sure that I have the right keyboard installed. I'm using a German keyboard layout, so on the server side, so I pick German here for the client side as well. And last but not least, we need to enable the remote connection. By default, the remote connection is disabled. So if somebody's just starting it up, we need to make sure that the remote connection is enabled. It's not enabled by default because the remote screen or the remote connection is always or has something to do with privacy and data protection. And we can only use this if we have the needed privacy and data protection rules in place in our company. Otherwise, you might get problems because, I mean, at the end of the day, using the remote connection, and if you do this with the operator has to be aware that there is a remote connection running. And this is what we make sure here, that we initially have to enable the remote connection here. We can, as we are here, just set up the automatic startup type so that we can make sure the next time the device is reset or restarted, that the remote connection is enabled automatically and activated by default, so that we have the possibility from the DMS side to start the remote connection. Good. Now going back, we have done everything we need in the settings. Now the BHT remote is showing us the IP address of the device, which we could use as well to connect standalone, but the DMS system knows the IP address, so we don't need this information if we're using the DMS system. If we're using the remote connection by just activating the remote server-side application, then we would need this IP address to put it in. But our DMS system is taking care for us in this case. So the only thing we need to do now is to start the remote connection on the client side. And having done this, we can go to the server side and we can right click on the device and click on Android Remote. This is now starting up the Android Remote server-side part. It says here, oh, there is an error. The screen size needs to be set, so I need to specify the screen size. I put it to 100%, and then I click on Connect. And now we have the remote connection up and running. That's pretty much it. We have the remote connection. We can control the device now using the remote connection, pressing the home screen, starting up the applications, operating the device, scrolling down, starting up nodes, for instance, adding a new node, giving it a name, and typing on my keyboard, hello world. That's it. So we see we can use the keyboard, we can use the mouse to click on the device. And of course, we can control a few more things. We can make screen capture here. We can control the volume up and down on the device. We have the possibility to operate the power key, so do a restart, shut down, put the terminal to sleep, wake it up if it is off. We can use different modes on the BHT remote. By default, this is indicated here, we're in assistant mode. So assistant mode means we can control the device remotely. If I switch the mode to view only, then I cannot control the device. I can click on the device, nothing would happen. So now everything which is done on the client side is just shown on my screen. So if I want the operator to do what he is usually doing, then I can ask him to do this, and then I can check what he is doing. And if I'm connected with him by phone, for instance, I can let him know what he should do or what he should show me. So this is this one. Of course, I can switch the mode back to assistant mode, and there is one additional mode, which is the desktop mode. To demonstrate the desktop mode, I would like to show you my actual device. So I'm switching to the device screen. This is the device laying on my desk, and we see here the remote. And now if I go in here and switch to desktop mode, I get a message and confirm this with OK. And you see that the device screen has turned black. So as the administrator of the device, I now have the possibility to go into settings and change settings, adding passwords or something like this, where I don't want the operator of the device on the side to see what I'm doing. So I want to make sure that he is not in a position to change anything later on by seeing what I'm doing. And then once I have done my settings and adjusted everything for him, then I can switch back to the assistant mode, and the device screen then is turning up again, and the operator can then operate the device as usual. So that's everything to show on the BHT remote application using with the DMS system. And we have seen today how to distribute files, applications, OS images to the device using the DMS system, and how to use the BHT remote function with the DMS system. I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below and we'll answer as soon as possible. Or just send us a message. You can find our contact details in the description below as well. If you want to see more video tutorials from the DENSO Tech Academy or other video content from DENSO, check out our channel. Or subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on new videos. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.